Hello and welcome to the first episode of OVERDRIVE in 2017. To start off the year with a bang, we decided to head down, or rather drive down to the furthest corner of India, Dambuk, where we're headed for the Orange Festival. Along the way, we decided to drive some compact crossovers. Affordable, but are they tough? This is how the story unravels. This is the first time we've come up to Arunachal Pradesh, this far away from home, driving all the way from Guwahati. And while we expected it to be far harsher terrain, far more difficult, our expectations, well, it really didn't match up. This country is just so spectacular, it's so beautiful.
I'm a big fan of this place. It's one of the most secluded, unexplored parts of the country. And in that sense, the drive experience here is a huge experience.
Every place inside of Assam and Arunachal Pradesh, it's clean. It's unlike anything we've seen back home in Bombay or in Delhi for that matter.
So with this test, we didn't want to just restrict it to the compact SUVs and crossovers. We also wanted to bring in hatchbacks that have been raised for our market. Now, there are only two cars in the segment that actually had changes made to the ground clearance, and that's the Fiat Urban Cross and the Hyundai i20 Active.
The i20 Elite was always a good car in our books, and having given that slightly advantageous ground clearance to it in the i20 Active, well, that works wonders in this terrain, especially when we are crossing the river bed, because the terrain is harsh. There's a lot of rocky beds over there. There's some sand patches. So driving through that could be tough, could be challenging for a hatchback or for a sedan. Not that those don't come across this terrain. With the i20 Active, just that you've got a little bit more ground clearance, and that becomes a big advantage.
The i20 Active has a really nice, torquey diesel engine, and in that sense, it was very peaceful to drive. Highways, great overtaking ability, off-road, great tractability. But it also felt a lot like a car. It doesn't feel like an SUV. So it's basically a car that can handle rough terrain, but it's not a car designed for rough terrain.
The one drawback that I thought the i20 had, of course, is that the suspension is sprung a little too softly, and some of the off-road sections that we drove through in the riverbed, well, out there, the chances of bottoming out the car, well, those are very high, especially if you brake too hard trying to avoid an obstacle. And the trick here is to maintain, well, smooth momentum throughout those sections. For that, you have to control the transmissions, you have to know which gear and to stay in and how much of throttle you need to give to the car. Keep it smooth, keep it flowing well consistently, and the i20 passes over most of those obstacles comfortably. But yeah, get on the brakes, step hard on it, and the front end could dive down a little bit. But again, keep in mind it's not the car with the highest ground clearance in this lot. So that could be a challenge in some of the tougher sections.
The Fiat Urban Cross to me is one of the nicest looking cars here. The Punto has always been a great looking car, and this continues that trend. What makes the Urban Cross stand out from its standard hatchback sibling is the fact that it's slightly higher up. There's rugged cladding all around and the roof rails, but beyond that it's pretty much the same car, and the same applies for the interior. Very classically designed, nice looking interior, not the most practical, it doesn't have the most space, and there's not enough space to store your things when you're traveling on the highway as well.
The thing with the Urban Cross is that it's still what the Punto used to be, and essentially that's where it's been built from. So while it's a large or rather huge amount of cosmetic changes, a lot of the mechanical bits are still very, very familiar, still very old for that matter. The transmission, the way the engine delivers power, the way the suspension also behaves in some of the sections. While it is stiffly sprung, it's not got the kind of confidence you would want from it as you'd get from some of the other crossovers in this comparison.
The Urban Cross has great highway stability. It's a very nice handler, nice steering feel, good brakes. Not a very good driving position. We've been saying this for years, and I'll say it again.
I'd like to stay at 130, 140 kilometers per hour on some of these sections because they're absolutely long. 7 kilometers, 8 kilometers, straight roads, absolutely flat in Arunachal Pradesh. So spectacular roads to drive on, and the Urban Cross, when it is comfortable over there. It's just that when it comes to the corners, you know, you're struggling a bit trying to manage this car around.
As for how it performed, highway, great, good roads, bad roads, not a problem. Off-roadability, like I said with the i20, it's not off-roader, but it can handle rugged situations.
On the whole, it's a good looking car, drives well, got great ride quality. It's a very comfortable car, probably one of the most comfortable cars to be in on these sections. We've taken it across some bad patches, and so far that suspension hasn't given us any problems, and I think that's hugely commendable for a car that's been in the market for this long. The challenges these conditions throw up to most of these crossovers, of course, is of reliability, of durability, and quite a few of these crossovers have handled these conditions extremely well. The Brezza, the Creta, the TUV for that matter. But some of the other crossovers like the BRV, the Urban Cross, again, there are a few issues with them where build quality is concerned, some noises from the interiors, a bit of rattles here and there. And I think if they could be built in a much better fashion, they'd be, overall it would just, it would boost or rather raise the qualities of these cars. But on the whole, I think most of these crossovers in this segment are extremely well built. They're tough, they're hardy, they've handled everything respectably well. So hats off to every one of them.
One of the reasons we really like the Vitara Brezza is because it has a very well set up chassis. It's a firm, almost sporty feeling vehicle. It doesn't feel much like an SUV, and in that sense it's stable on the highway, it holds the line very well, and it's actually good fun to drive.
On the sections between Guwahati to Tezpur and Tezpur to Pasighat, North Lakhampur and Pasighat, well, the Brezza is quite impressive simply because also the roads are impressive. Wherever the roads are well paved, smooth, fast, the Brezza feels just right at home. Keep in mind, this is one of those compact crossovers that's got phenomenal dynamics, probably one of the best dynamics in this class as well. And it just shows over here.
It's a great handler. It's more car-like than SUV in that sense. And on the highway from Guwahati to where we are right now, Dambuk, we experienced a whole variety of roads. There were fast straight roads, which the Vitara Brezza was great at. There were winding roads, where it was the best here. It was an absolute blast to drive. But there were also bad roads, and that's where the Vitara Brezza isn't as capable as the others because it has this sporty setup, so it doesn't absorb potholes quite as well. So there's a bit of a compromise that comes with the fun to drive factor. It's not as comfortable as some of the others.
Another aspect of the Brezza that I thought I really liked was that everything is being built so well. Everything has been put together so fastidiously that nothing inside has creaked. There's just absolutely no body sounds, there's no noises from inside the cabin, nothing. And we've gone on some pretty bad roads as well.
When we originally compared the Brezza and the TUV, the Brezza came out as the winner. But on this drive, the TUV actually really shone. I think a large reason for that was because of the bad roads we experienced on this entire drive. The TUV was one of the best, up there with the Terrano, at absorbing just broken bad roads for hours on end.
The TUV, I think, has been our ace in this pack of crossovers. Again, one of the, how would I say it, the most affordable crossovers in this comparison test, but still built the ruggedness that it's built with. It's just exemplary. For most of these crossovers, I think this is one of those suspension setups, one of those ride qualities that you should really aspire to have.
It isolates you really well from bad roads. There's a bit of skittishness that comes in, but it's not much concern. The fact is, it just keeps going. Speed breakers, nothing slows it down. And working with that is a very, very torquey engine. You can stick it in fifth and drive it from 40 kilometers upwards. It's almost like an automatic in that sense.
Not the most comfortable, of course, to drive in urban areas, but definitely on a longer journey like this, 600 kilometers and more, the TUV, well, definitely one for the books.
The TUV looks large and boxy from the outside, but the upshoot of that is it's actually very spacious on the inside. It also offers 7 seats, but these are horizontally opposing jump seats at the back, and we're not very fond of that. But when you compare to the other sub-4 meter cars here, like the Brezza and the EcoSport, the TUV has a lot more space, and it's surprising how much space there is in this car.
The EcoSport, bear in mind, is the oldest crossover in this comparison test, probably in the segment as well. And though it is due to go through a raft of changes later on this year, probably early next year, this current EcoSport that we've driven, well, it definitely feels aged.
The EcoSport's not the most spacious car here, but it does offer a really nice driving experience. Highway stability is great. There's a nice compromise between sporty suspension and soft absorptive ride. It has a hint of softness to it, but it's also involving to drive. It has very nice steering feel, very nice gearbox. The 100 horsepower diesel engine is linear. It doesn't have any sudden steps in power delivery. And in that sense, the driver can have a good time while also keeping the passengers comfortable.
The interior design, the dashboard is just huge. There's enormous amounts of room ahead of the steering wheel, and that can be a bit disconcerting when you're driving it in some of the trickier regions of Dambuk, especially on the off-road sections, because well, sight lines aren't that great, and it could be a bit of a challenge driving the EcoSport in some of these mild off-road situations over here as well. But I do believe the EcoSport needs to be refreshed. It needs a new lease on life, and I've just seen a newer version of the EcoSport in North America. And well, I'm excited about that version coming down to India. I think it'll be much nicer, will be much appreciated, much better than what the current EcoSport is. It definitely will draw a few more consumers to it, at least a lot more consumers than what it is at this point in time. So there you go, the EcoSport, great everywhere, but not the complete package any longer. The one thing that you would want to give you peace of mind, especially in these regions, are the tyres. And we've partnered with Fiat, and Fiat's provided tyres for all of these SUVs, all of these crossovers, and I think they've done remarkably well. They perform remarkably well, both on road and on the off-road sections as well. I think they're a good companion to have on any journey.
The Nissan Terrano is one of the best cars we've driven in India at this price point that can handle our roads. The suspension can take a real beating, and this is at low speed off-road or high-speed highway driving. And in that sense, the Terrano is one of the nicest cars to drive off-road here.
The Terrano's got that phenomenal blend well, of being an urban commuter and well, long-distance traveler as well. Phenomenal suspension setup, handles everything that you'd throw at it comfortably. Absolutely no issues with that vehicle.
It's also a great car covering long distances. Efficiency is good at high speeds. It sustains high speeds very peacefully, but it's also very tractable and torquey at the bottom end. So in off-road situations like that, she just pulls herself through. No problem from the suspension, no problem from the ground clearance. Stress-free, good fun actually off-road.
Overall, however, the Terrano doesn't feel very well connected. The steering system, for that matter, feels very lethargic. You just don't have the kind of directness that you would want in a crossover of this sort. The suspension, while it works wonderfully well, again, it nicely complements the engine, the torque spread that you'd get from that engine, but it's not the driver's car that you would want, or the driver's car crossover that you would want. There are better crossovers in this segment that offer you that aspect. But if you were to come to such a harsh region such as well, Dambuk, then the Terrano is definitely one of your better companions.
The BRV is one of the largest cars here, but it's actually based on the Brio and Amaze platform. In that sense, however, it's a much more premium feeling car, both in the way it looks and the way it drives.
I did expect a little more out of the BRV. Now, it's got good ride quality. It's well, a comfortable plush SUV or rather crossover to drive, but it's one of those crossovers that's also got the most body roll in this entire comparison test. There's a lot of body motion, and that can be fairly, how would I say it, it's not as confident as some of the other crossovers in this test, especially on those fast sections. High-speed driving, again, there's a bit of jittery motion from the BRV. I would have liked it to be a little more stiffer sprung so that it gives you more composure, gives you more confidence. But the BRV, well, Like I said, it's comfortable, but not essentially meant for long distance commuting. It's great in the city, short drives, it's a fantastic option, but over the longer stretches, not really.
The BRV seems to be engineered to just get the job done very well for a family. It's the only 7-seater here, and that's going to appeal to a lot of buyers. It doesn't really excel in terms of handling or off-road capability, but it's just a well-rounded package, great for a large family, no nonsense, comfortable car to drive.
The suspension setup that's on the softer side also presents another challenge, and that's in the off-road sections, or rather in the bad patches that we're driving over, because there's a lot of front-end dive as well, and under braking sometimes it could get a bit hairy. While we haven't scraped anything underbody as yet, there's still always that sense that something is just going to touch at the bottom. The Hyundai Creta feels like the slightly odd man out in this comparison test because, well, it actually slots in a much higher price category than most of these crossovers. The Creta feels very luxurious in the inside. It's got great ride quality, very comfortable seats. It shouts a premium in every aspect.
It's not as big as the BRV, it's not as rugged as the Terrano, but in that sense, it's got the most powerful engines here. It's great highway cruising ability, very comfortable. You can cover 1,000 kilometers a day, no stress in that car. Maybe not on the roads we were on because there was a lot of bad sections, but even there the Creta impressed because she doesn't seem too fazed by bad roads.
Where the suspension is concerned for the Creta, it's a plush ride quality. There really isn't much to complain about. It handles both the rough and the smooth fairly well. But having said that, having driven all this way, 600 kilometers from Guwahati to Dambuk, reliability is the big question out here. On some of the sections, well, the suspension, you can hear the springs, well, you can hear the shock absorbers compressing a bit too hard. You can feel the thuds and the bumps inside the car. On the whole, however, the Creta still manages to maintain its composure, manages to, well, continue to offer its comfort and luxury. I think this is a spectacular crossover and probably one of the most competitive in this segment as well. Again, I do wish Hyundai would make the Creta a 4x4 as well, give that option, because that will just extend the range of its abilities and would make accessing some of these regions out here far more easier, far better.
This has been one of our toughest tests yet, and that too for a breed of vehicle that isn't entirely built for these conditions. But as I said, they all performed exceeding their mandate. Overall then, the Vitara Brezza, with just won our Car of the Year, turns out to be the best driver's crossover as well as the best value for money package. The Hyundai Creta is the most premium, and overall, the Nissan Terrano is the toughest crossover in this comparison.
What a fantastic trip this has been. We've come all the way from Mumbai through Delhi, Guwahati, and well wound up here in Dambuk, a small town in Arunachal Pradesh. Well, I hope your new year is as fantastic as ours is. In a few minutes from now, well, like I said at the beginning of this show, we're here to watch UV Malmsteen, well, rockers. I'm pretty excited. This is going to be a fantastic evening, watching one of the greatest guitar players in the history of mankind right up there on that stage, doing his thing. Whew. Awesome.